let everyone in. Okay, great. Oh, it's so great to see everybody. Welcome. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for coming here and not going to Beacon Theater to hear Bono. That's where two of my friends are tonight. So they're missing out on this though. Thanks everyone for coming. Welcome. My name is Jennifer Franklin, and I'm the program director of the Hudson Valley Writers Center. We're so happy to have you with us tonight as we continue our fall reading series. If it's your first time joining us for a reading, welcome. We hope to see you back here on Zoom on November 30th as we welcome Joan Kwan Glass, Lauren Camp, Edwin Torres, and Anna Ross. And for our special SHP reading, our annual War and Peace reading on Friday, November 11th, as we welcome Mark Pollack and Zavinia Orlowski and Carolyn Wright. Yeah. As always, I want to thank our founder and founding editor of Slapping Hall Press, award-winning poet Margot Taft-Stever. I want to thank the board of directors, our teachers and students who are the beating heart of the center, and the foundations and organizations who support us, including NISCA and Arts Westchester. Arts Westchester gave us a generous Restart the Arts grant for funding our reading series through the end of 2022. Thank you to my colleagues, Christina Papadopoulos, Natalie Soar, and of course, my co-host, Sophia Bannister, who's with me tonight, for all their hard work. We're so happy to have these award-winning poets here with us tonight. It's really an honor to introduce all of them. Cyrus Cassells is the 2021 Poet Laureate of Texas. In 2022, he was named an Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellow. In honor of Juneteenth, he will hold a poetry contest for students grades 6 through 12 across the state. His honors include a Guggenheim Fellowship, the National Poetry Series, a Lambda Literary Award, a Lannan Literary Award, 2 NEA grants, a Pushcart Prize, and the William Carlos Williams Award. His 2018 volume, The Gospel According to Wild Indigo, was a finalist for the NAACP Image Award, the Helen C. Smith Memorial Award, and the Balcones Poetry Prize. He was nominated for the 2019 Pulitzer Prize in Criticism for his film and television reviews in the Washington Spectator. He teaches in the MFA program at Texas State University and is the recipient of the 2021 Presidential Award for Scholarly Creative Activity, one of the university's highest honors. A little bit of background about the book. In the aftermath of the Stand Your Ground killing of his close friend's father, he explores the brutality, bigotry, and betrayal at the heart of current America. Taking his cue from civil rights and Vietnam War era poets and songwriters who inspired him in his youth, he presents a frank, bulletin fierce indictment of unraveling democracy in an embattled America and a world haunted by slavery. Please help me welcome Cyrus Cassells.
Thank you so much. I was asked to craft a sentence about democracy today for the Writers for Democracy, and my sentence is, democracy is not a hammer to the skull or missing evidence. It is innocent, even-handed, and all-embracing. I'm going to read 3 poems this evening. The first 2 are set in the Southern Cone, set in Chile and Argentina during the Dirty War and Pinochet's regime. The first poem is called Clarinet, and it's in the voice of a mother who was putting together an arpiera, and these were scenes of the disappeared embroidered onto burlap, called arpieras. There's also a mention of the Guez solo, which is the mothers would dance alone, miming dancing with their disappeared loved one. This is called clarinet. At my family's stained window, a morning jay, I stopped my scissoring as if I could reclaim a Santiago, a bird call, and sudden ease, as if I could annul the battle gray maze of gutting jails, courthouses, morgues, purgatory, where I bend over the burlap again and again to show the blunt, disillusioning world the smashed black bell of your clarinet. A blue swatch of your work shirt becomes the raw dusk of that day. Here in this farrago of scraps, your living room as I found it, lunatic with ripped song sheets. In imploring red, a beggar scuffed vermilion, I've stitched, whoever sees my arpillera, help me to pray for my son. He was seen leaving rehearsal at 7 o'clock. He was seen in detention at Londres number 38. He was seen. After so many years, perhaps you wouldn't recognize me, Leonel. I've become the weather-worn, undocile woman manacled to a tyrant's fence, a mother dancing the Gueca solo in the monitored plaza, the ache of my make-do arms trumpeted, your rakish college photo pinned to my wind-riffled blouse. In the arpillera, a tiny, vivid applique doll, forever mourning, forever swaying to an unforgettable woodwind. This is a sequence called Tango with a Ghost. Parts of it refer to the Dirty War in Buenos Aires from 1977, and parts are set in the present. There are 4 parts. Tango with a Ghost, Buenos Aires Overture. I've been reading, I think this is my 26th reading in my book tour, and I've never gotten to this poem, and I know it's a poem people really admire. Tango with a Ghost, Buenos Aires Overture. In a city of bodies shunted into clandestine cars, flesh hurled from an atavistic chopper's staggering height into the gagging river at vehement wolf's hour or sky-staining blue hour. One body in a city suffused with staunch memories of the slandered and the disappeared. One soul, one incendiary memory. In a breeze-swept metropolis of numberless phantoms, a single ghost, stubborn as unbridled kudzu or all-conquering witchgrass. In a crazy quilt city of come-hither glances and brazenly expressive limbs, pulsing dance halls and feverish milongas, one impossible tango. 2, the living room gasp. That April, I was 16. I headed to a local indoor pool on a bus full of lanky swimmers when my thigh accidentally grazed the rugged leg of soccer-playing Alejandro, exchange student who hailed from Buenos Aires' refined Retiro district. After a brief time, I thought I'd faint from the shock of subterranean pleasure. A girl-addled junior, I never felt this upending pull toward another good-looking boy. So when I found Alejandro's profile on a living room mantel shelf in BA, I think I went insane for a time, insane that Alejandro should return to me, and the scintillating hazel gaze and undercover hands of his strapping nephew Adriano was a jack-in-the-box jolt and out of the blue mercy. 3, the vanishing and the roaring. Adriano, tell me, what happened to your uncle? My friend, do you know something about the dirty war? You understand, he simply walked to a student demonstration on an April night and never returned. As a necessary history lesson, dapper, warm-blooded Adriano Cool carts me to the Casa Rosa, the presidential palace, where unfailing mothers of the disappeared are still protesting after many years. So I recall the immense curved penis and long sienna legs of my first novio, and an ardent Alejandro's place, brusque shouts, volley of shots, a roaring, the castaway limbs of shunted, blindfolded students, stiff of storefront mannequins in the river. 4, Tango with a Ghost. Adriano Cool whispers, Amor, if you've had trouble sleeping, it's because the city, this district, is so crowded with student ghosts. There's a special tango, Adriano reveals, featuring a male dancer decked solely in black, making it seem like the lissom woman is somehow partnered with a shadow. Fleet as Hermes, a lord-like shadow caresses you. An exhilarating ally sparks and shores your tango, your fireworks display of dance hall skill and ardor. A lamp-black, tantalizing ghost. As if my long-lost soccer prince had implored, come away with me, my revenant angel, from the stark mania of the poisoned river, the Black Marias, the harrowing locusts of bones. To strains of masterful Carlos Gardel, I'll teach you the most feverish steps. Buenos Aires is only a burrowing wind, a sigh, a breeze-swept prayer. Come dance with me, poet, in the half-maimed world. And I'm going to end with the final poem in the new book. It's dedicated to Scott Warren, the borderland activist. He was tried and acquitted 3 times for providing access to people coming over the border through the desert. Courage song for Scott Warren. Sing no more makeshift crosses in the gangplank desert. No more, quote, dog catcher trucks. No more jawbones under the moon. Bring your rebellious grit like a bromide or a borderland candle to our bigotry is commonplace republics, chaos. Bold anima, dissenting angel, among the betraying cliffs and dry washes, the yellow plumes of the Palo Verde, be renegade Harriet in a midnight cane field, General Tubman, be Martin bravely riding in an abysmal Birmingham jail. Yes, your boundless shepherd's gallantry, your at-the-ready compassion is the rescuing sip and the heaven-sent gourd required at all our desperate crossings.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful. I'm glad that you got to that poem after 26 readings that you haven't read it. Thank you for reading it for us tonight. So now we have Julia Guez, a writer and translator based in New York City. Her essays, interviews, fiction, poetry, and translations have appeared in Guernica, Poetry, The Guardian, Bomb, The Brooklyn Rail, and Kenyon Review. Four-Way Books released her first full-length collection, In an Invisible Glass Case, which is also a frame, in 2019. The Certain Body was published by Four Way in September of 2022. She's been awarded the Discovery Boston Review Poetry Prize, a Fulbright Fellowship, and the John Frederick Nims Memorial Prize in Translation, as well as a Translation Fellowship from the NEA. For the last decade, she has worked with Teach for America New York. She's currently the Senior Managing Director and Design and Implementation. She teaches creative writing at NYU and Rutgers. She talks about this poem, Beginning and Ending, by what Lucy Brock-Bordeaux calls, quote, an attention so attentive it is next to worshiping. And that is what you are going to see in all of the poems from A Certain Body. I'm so happy to be able to welcome another one of my pressmates here tonight, Julia.
Jennifer, thank you so much. Thank you to the Hudson Valley Writers Center. This is the first time, Cyrus, in over 20 years that we have read together, and it's my first time with Rajiv and Philip. So very special to be here. Special also because this is my newborn son's first poetry reading. So he's 9 days old. You might very well hear him in the living room. Jennifer was saying that her daughter's first reading was Seamus Heaney, if I'm remembering correctly. And I have to say, like, our son Wiley has got similarly good taste. This is the book that Four Way Books put together for us this fall. Very grateful to Julie Maritu for sharing some of her art for the cover. And I'll begin at the beginning with a poem called Meditation at Callicoon. More and more night pretends it isn't spring. What to make of the daffodils then? Hyacinth here and there, wind and rain. So many birds. Of course, they won't stay long, none of this will. Not the night, the cold, the city full of swallows, not the bridges and rivers, not the sea. No God born of the sea foam, not even mothers and sons. This would be unbearable without. Second poem in this one is called As We Consider Another Child, and I think you know now where we landed with that. I'll read another one, also dedicated to pressmate, Camilla Aisha Moon. And if you don't know her work, I encourage you to find some. You'll be very rewarded by that. And this one is called If Indeed I Am Ill. Tell me all about London. The weather there in spring, outside the walls of the Great Hall. These things matter less to me than the sound of your summary. Shadows cast on the watery surfaces of my mind by invisible fingers whose energy is everything, as you know. These sonatas, these scores, tell me, what of them will last when everything falls away? I'm going to read a section from this middle poem called A More Onerous Citizenship, whose title I filched from Susan Sontag. She wrote a book called Illness as Metaphor, and in it she says that illness is the night side of life, a more onerous citizenship. The bulk of this book was written when I was sick and recovering with COVID in the spring of 2020 here in the city of New York. And both the sickness and just the handling of that moment broadly very much felt like a more onerous citizenship. So returning to that book, Illness as Metaphor, I felt like a kleptomaniac in a really nice store. And I thought, oh, I gotta take it. This poem is divided into 5 sections, which correspond with Ash Wednesday, Maundy Thursday, Good Friday service, Saturday Vigil, and Easter. And I'll just begin with the first section and maybe leave you with some of the others on the back of your mind, and can drop a link where you can read the rest. So many Cassandras sing each to each. What we gathering cannot yet sense may as well be Greek. For the record, I do not know Greek. Let there be a record. Let the record show my Greeklessness would matter greatly at several points, one or two in particular. May have been windwarding, the song I mean, all those xylophones, windwarding now to know the music was both knowable and known then when I was standing next to you in the last pew, with our coats still on because it was cold and we would still have been hurrying to certain offices after. I will think of you often. Performing these frail rites to bend the centrifugal back some, I am afraid this will be one convalescence after another. Lilacs on every sill, profusely sad, knowing they too spread and spread, not unlike the bells, ever widening rings of all kinds, and the terrible swing of the censer. Sirens on the other side of this psalm, whose linens are loud with cries, and are become our Italy. Okay, it's painful for me to skip over these parts because there's at least one fever dream, which includes a shower scene. But for that, I'll either drop a link so you can see this in a magazine, or you can buy the book, because I want to jump ahead and take a note from Cyrus and read something I haven't read yet before, but feel like I'm ready to now. Still life when all our symptoms seem to have symptoms of their own. The dark is very dark. On the night side of things, long is very long. My heart is feathered fire, smallest flying flag. Wings are sad, sad singing, not at all slow. My heart closes in on itself, not unlike a peony, whose own process of becoming has been set back until the open-handed flower is tight and green, like a fist. Poor thing is thrumming in this invisible glass case, which is also a frame, where the most contagious are taken, to be alone there all together, praying the same prayer. And I'll end with a poem that I wrote for my 40th birthday. At a moment where I felt like birthdays had become sort of a radical achievement. I feel that way about half birthdays now. I feel that way about getting all the way to Wednesday. I feel like it's a radical achievement being with you all here tonight, and that's not a treat I take for granted. So thank you all for coming out. This was written, I took myself, once I was well enough to travel, which took several months, I took myself to Costa Rica, where I spent some time on a Fulbright. We had some chosen family around us, and on my birthday, I remember looking at this massive tree, I mean, probably 100-year-old tree at a minimum, begin to drop flowers from the sky onto the lawn. And I just thought that, this sort of year that we shared through 2020 really set us up to enjoy that and to pay attention in ways I wanted to try to capture in the poem. I don't know if this lives up, Jennifer, to the quote you brought from Lucy Brock-Broida about this being an attention, sort of next to worshiping, but we'll see. This is 40, so 10 lines, 4 words each line. Thank you again for having me. All the purple flowers, the way they fall, white and purple falling. See how they turn their skirts, turning their white and purple skirts, so that at least they fall slowly, make no sound, beginning soon to yellow, then brown.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful, Julia. It's so good to see you and to see you healthy, and to have all of you here. It's really a treasure, this reading. We've been waiting for it for a long time. Rajiv Mohabir is an Indo-Caribbean American author of 3 acclaimed poetry collections: The Taxidermist Cut, Cowherd's Son, and Cutlash, a book of translation, I Even Regret Night, and his hybrid memoir, Anti-Man. He is winner of the 2015 Kundiman Prize, a 2015 PEN Translation Fund grant, finalist for the 2017 and 2022 Lambda Literary Awards, finalist for the 2022 PEN Open Book Award, the 2021 National Book Critics Circle Award for Poetry, and longlisted for the PEN Volkner Award in Poetry. He has received fellowships from Voices of Our Nation's Artists Foundation, Kundiman, the Homeschool, and the American Institute of Indian Studies Language Program. He's currently a professor at Emerson College. His poems are so expansive and so tight at the same time. Please help me welcome Rajiv Mohabir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for inviting me to be here, and to thank everybody who had their hands in organizing this at the Hudson Valley Writers Center, including Sophia Bannister. Thank you to the fellow readers, Cyrus, Julia, and Philip. I'm so excited to be here with you. What a supreme honor for me. I'm going to be reading several poems for you from my book, Cutlash. Now, the word cutlash is a rural recasting of the word cutlass, which is a machete. It's an object of labor as well as violence in my community of people who survived indenture, racialized indenture in South America. So I see it to be only befitting to begin this poem, or to begin this reading with the definitional poem of cutlash. Cutlash. Cutlash, noun. 1. Cutlass. 2. British blade machete. 3. Colony blister of cane knife. 4. Demerara brown sugar. 5. Kidneys, toes, eyes. 6. 7. Eldorado rum rot. My family, like I said, were in the late 1800s sent to the British colonies of British Guiana, then Guyana now, after decolonization, and we were termed and called coolie. And this poem is dedicated to a great-great-grandfather who was the first in my family to bear this title. And this is called Coolie. The poem that I'm about to read to you is based on the structure of chutney song. It's a kind of form that I've been trying to migrate into the United States to hold the history of this kind of background, language, magic. You'll hear a chorus, what I'm calling a chorus, or a mukra, in Guyanese Bhojpuri, and you'll also hear Guyanese Creole and English, all in the same poem. As a matter of closure, you will hear a translation or a recasting of the original couplet that I begin with. Coolie. Coolie naam dahraya, je hamke tej pakaraye, cutlash jaison kaate hamke, Gayanawa mein aike. With his whip scar iron shackle name Aja, contract bong whole day cut keen. Come night, he drink up rum fiso until he wind up and pitch in the trench black water and cry, "Oh manager," until sugar and pressure claim he too I. The Bakra manager laugh we, so come, so done. I was born a crab dog devotee of the silent God, the jungle God, the God crosser of seas. White tongues licked the sweet demerara of my sores. Now, stateside, Americans erase this surf story. Call me Indian. Can't they hear Kalapani in my voice? My breath's marine layer when I say. They made us hold the name Kuli. Like a cutlass, it bit us coming to Guyana. Making that journey across the Kalapani, or the dark water that erases caste and kin, there are documented accounts of queer folks traveling, hijra folks, and this is to my ancestress, whose name is Rukmini, who was a hijra, who made that journey. And this poem is entitled Hiranyagarbha, which means that very lotus that springs from the navel of Lord Vishnu and holds the creator god Brahma, who creates the entire universe. Hiranyagarbha. Born of a cane stalk, I am the first mad woman to descend barrack steps into body of petals. In some Indian story, this grass is my ancestor, but I don't know it. To forget means to survive. I am expert at amnesia, new moon faced. I have my own mantra. Somewhere my navel string sleeps under handfuls of rice field dirt. My father's father threw into sky to forecast gravity. Now the land is erased under my feet. I am told I am nameless. We've spit out English, but this game of interpreting shadow, reading bodies into holes of text, is a memory trick of presence. Oh, ancestor, I've inherited passing, how to disappear straight and to alveolarize my name, all blue, bribed by silk and hate, a relic, a lover's lip, a dead queer's tongue that licks assholes bald, back against shipboards, the many-toothed snake striking this body, which is a well terrible with Kalapani. Now, in this journey, flash forward with me to maybe 2011. You're a 20-something queer brown person living in New York City, in Queens. You moved to Queens because, hey, it's great to be queer and brown in a big city with a lot of other Indo-Caribbeans around. And this is called the Poco Kid, as in the post-colonial kid. And you might recognize the couplet that begins the piece by Gayatri Chakraborty's Spivak, which I'll translate in the end for you, of course, because this is another chutney poem. The Poco Kid. Matahet Logan bolna sake he darasa nihi maral murjake. Let's get one thing clear. I'm no Sabu-like sidekick. I'm the main drag. Ram Ram in a sari, salam on the street. I don't speak Hindu, Paki, or Indian. Can't control minds, have no psychic powers. I clip my yellow nails at dusk. On Saturday nights, I shave my head. Forgive me, Shiva. Forgive me, Saturn. I'm Cooley on Liberty Ave, Desi in Jackson Heights, where lights spell season's greetings to cover Christmas, Diwali, and Eid. Where folks in ethnic aisles ask, will your parents arrange your bride? While Ma and I scope out fags, gyaf and laugh, while aunties thread our eyebrows. The subaltern cannot speak. Representation has not withered away. As you can see, it's been a while since I've had my eyebrows threaded. Let's see. Okay, and now I'm going to be reading a poem called Chutney Mashup. I've been talking, I've read a couple of chutney poems to you. Now, what I've done also here is I've translated all of these chutney songs that I really love, and I created a mashup for you of my translations. except for the chorus, of course, which you'll hear again. Chutney mashup. Aaj savaliya hamna jaibe bithar balama ulat pavana chala gaya chadar bichao. You tie a veil to meet me in the courtyard, though there no neem tree grows. You wrap your limbs tightly about mine as jamun fruits betray their pedicels and stain the concrete with ruby wine. The Shehnai weeps for us only. Inside, my strength has ebbed. Spread a sheet on the earth, Balma, that when weary we may lie on silk in peace. Despite this wise restraint, your morals will scatter in a fire dance. What God can save us? I will never escape the body's betrayal. The neighbor women jeer at the stains on my veil, my ruined fabric. I pleat and tuck at my waist. Today, love, I will not go outside. Against the backwards wind, spread a sheet. So one thing I really love about my people, my family, my culture is that we are infinitely inventive. On the plantations we had, we didn't have access to, or my ancestors didn't have access to kind of sitars and these instruments of beauty. So instead what they did was they found and used what they could. Buckets for drums. There was this poem is called dantal, an instrument, and what it is, it's said to be the axle of an oxen cart that is used as a percussive instrument. And so this poem is called dantal, an instrument. Sakia, my darling friends, if we forget our songs and stories, who will we become? Consider the dholak drum player. Consider his chutney. The drummer knocks his rhythm deep into us. Talas in our temples, a heartbeat to keep the time of the ocean's lapping, to keep us clapping, to keep us remembering our names. Gold music of the hand's bangles. I made a pair of my own, pointed rods marked in X's and flowers, to gleam in tempo, the top smooth and bare before curved to fit the wrist. Friends, beat a drum yourselves, become timekeepers. Iron ox cart axles transformed into music. I think I'm going to end with a poem called Guide. And I like to end with this poem because it's my homage to Bollywood. So there's this movie that was made in 1965, excuse me, called Guide. And it was based on an R.K. Narayan book called The Guide. And it stars Devanand, and let's see, and Wahida Rahman. And what I love about this movie is that this I guess you would call him a grifter, comes back and he has this kind of profound moment of sacrifice. But before he does that, of course, he falls in love, and there's this musical interludes. And his main kind of flame goes to a snake temple and becomes possessed by the spirit of the snake goddess while she's dancing. And I just was I'm always so moved by watching that dance, even though it is Bollywood, and it can be real chai masala kind of dancing. But this was when Bollywood movies were still good. Can I say that? I don't know. 1965 Guide, check it out. It's really good. And something you should know about this poem, the name Ram is a Hindu name for God, and Rahim is one of the Muslim names or attributes of the Muslim God. And there are big conflicts happening in India with between these communities. So in the desert, if I say Ram or Rahim, Will the clouds break into a steady drum? If sky cracks, I will sing for you, stamp my feet into ribbon. What if I said, even in the night, where your hair's perfume torments, I am still parched? There are no lowly births. Clouds too begin first as sea. Would you believe that I could leave the world drawn up by the sun as a saint, me, a sham of a man? I watched you dance like a cobra. What does it take to be so bewitched by spirit? I spend the dark with whiskey, making a mask of these withered roses. How quickly a shadow can pass, and you become a stranger. Thank you all so much for the gift of your presence.
Thank you. That was such a wonderful reading. Thank you for being here. You all are so wonderful. It's great to have you with us tonight. Philip B. Williams is the author of Mutiny, Penguin 2021, winner of the 2022 American Book Award, and Thief in the Interior, which was the winner of the 2017 Kate Tufts Discovery Award and a 2017 Lambda Literary Award. Mutiny was named one of the best books of 2021 by the Boston Globe and Lit Hub. He's also the author of the chapbooks Bruised Gospels and Burn. His new work has appeared or is forthcoming in Boston Review, Callaloo, Kenyon Review, The New Republic, The New Yorker. He is the recipient of a 2020 grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, a 2017 Whiting Award, and a 2013 Ruth Lilly Fellowship. He serves as a faculty member at Bennington College and Randolph College Low-Res MFA. Mutiny, a rebellion, a subversion, and onslaught. In poems that rebuke classical mythos and Western canonical figures and embrace Afro-diaspora, funk, and spiritual imagery, Philip B. Williams conjures the hell of being erased, exploited, and ill-imagined, and then, through a force and generosity of vision, propels himself into life, selfhood, and a path forward. Intimate, bold, and sonically mesmerizing, Mutiny addresses loneliness, desire, doubt, memory, and the borderline between beauty and tragedy. Please help me welcome Philip B. Williams.
Thank you for having me. This is a great reading. I'm just sitting, I forgot that I had to read. Sitting here, just taking it all in. I'm going to read for about 15 to 20 minutes. Just straight from Mutiny. First poem is Judgment. I stand where I would have been covered in falling blood, the point of the pierced body, my reflection in the bronze skin of Christ sculpted into crucifixion, hanging as if just put into history, his brown head at the nadir of its nod, as if the very floor had summoned him to look. He eternally forced into this position that both casually welcomes and warns, neither of which I wanted, which makes it difficult to look. So I stare instead at the marble floor swirl of frost and liquid bone, of tempestuous fog swirling the way I imagine squalls inside the body, squalls shape-shifting like a story passed between lips where the flesh is soft and the story's plot as twisted as the chimera with its lion's head, its snake's tail, its goat's body, a thing to fear, to worship, to sacrifice. The plot billows like smoke from the bronze stomach of the Sicilian bull where 3 human skulls were removed. I named them Perilous, Dictum, and a name I will not share with you, no, but I will share that sage and frankincense breathed out from beneath burnt bodies was like a name to a kingdom of appetite and sweetness spoken. Charred skin raised like hands eager to claim the naked bodies dancing around it, their sweat seasoning the air. This the story told to me. Screams crawled through a pipe, into an emperor's chamber. Spurious music, bones of the roasted victims shone brilliantly once the bull's belly door opened, opal, pearl, the many things a body can become. Skeletal towers, well-chiseled testimonies woven into necklaces, an adornment warm as touch. The field. The battered field is hateful without remorse, is as seductive as what is familiar. A wild horse who long ceased being horse had become beauty itself, failing as the field has failed or someone has failed the field with overuse. The gray soil too sparse, its blonde grass in tight nubs and stiff as scimitars that jut from the earth as declarations of war. The barrenness cannot feed the hares who feed the foxes who feed the bloodlust of men. There is a leafless dogwood stunted in its naked reach. A storm rolls over the jagged boughs, raking the black air softened belly until lightning clarifies its scars. Scimitars could scar a belly with their sharpness, with their curves like a gleaming succubus sliding on each nerve's nylon until the harp is undone. Or the harp is played to the tune wind makes undressing an arid field. This is love if someone says so. A man weeps to soft music in his house, though nothing can hear him outside his window. His cry a ripple in a pond after a frog leaps out, then leaps back in, a word spoken by mistake that the speaker wants to take back. The word could be like love too, if broken, more broken than the shrill gate outside, swinging open then shut, obliterating entrance and exit. Here waits the god whose flute reveals and hides the way. She is mischievous with her song coming off the rusted hinges. The gate is edged by two stone pillars, both topped with pots once holding lavender, now holding moldy soil, one sweet smell deposed by another. Rot and the bones left bare is the story of the hare and fox, while the failed horse crafts the field's ugliness. Its wraith hooves crush the ground. Let the gate swill shut against that bestiary. The world's revision of itself roils through the storm, through the sky. Storm of bruised clouds, lightning and the last living beast revealed in bursts. First, its outline. Next, its distant maw made clear in that moment of light. Then two cobalt eyes, an abacus by which to count the days. Hunter. When you were mine, though not mine at all permanently, just a body for loneliness, a loneliness interrupted, interruptive. The sky opened like a secret in a mouth, mouth with a word in it, word with an arrowhead in its flank. Love, small creature it was, crying in the night beneath me. So many of these poems are incredibly long, but then I have a few that are just like this. Here's another really short one, Harold. His back arched as though through his heart, his shoulder blades would push into the air, their anti-wing. I have seen such doves go into what seemed like light, but was another cave. What feathers wait a cage over my heart? But, Cassandra, no one asked you. The goring, that sudden entry into any sanctuary could become was not me alighting. What love was the question from the mouth his back and the bed made. The asphodel. Yes, afterlife, but also flower, though not its color, rather the star break from the pinnacle, pointing in all directions, a kind of greed, a kind of giving up of one's self, but not retreat, offering, but not with fear, love, if love can make of a self a reaching that does not end. He had come back to him after much time had passed. It was the living past, and it wasn't. It was the fully blossomed X's bending beneath him who was thought dead. Get the hell out of my life, though he returned, shieldless, a field of sky breaking, breaking, a door knocked on, a door like a voice opening. Nemekita Pa, I Put a Spell on You, Nina Simone, 1965. A single pant leg dangles from the chair. Mud from the hem leaves graves on the floor. Collapsing star, the last button of your shirt caught between my teeth. Cricket, a record player cracks its skipping obsessions. A single pant leg dangles from the chair. Stars, dust from your ankles glides up slats of streetlight. Où l'amour sera roi, only the pits behind bent knees are kingdom. Mud from the hem leaves graves on the floor. Your underarm holds a nest of burning leaves I rub my face against. I smolder in the key of animal. A single pant leg dangles from the chair, a cougar unrolling the cologne of a doe from its tongue. Où l'amour sera loi, my bare feet run against the headboard. Mud from the hem leaves graves on the floor. A single pant leg dangles from the chair. Muni has in it over a dozen poems that begin final poem as a way for me to revise for myself different notions of symbols that are often used in poetry. For instance, with this poem, Final Poem for the Moon. My first lover, my clavicles chiseler sculpting me into blue lamentation and crucible for your lunacy. Summon me to scuttle forward, Cancer moon, Cancer rising, and fill myself on your dust splashed milk. Your gray honey, black green grass is used to sharpen their night blades. My paramour, who gowns me in a yawning glint, Heliosis canvas by which you find your aspects, find your shape misshapen in 7/8, your eighth self finally filled with ochre blood or the ruddy salutations of familiar fever. You passed your sickness to me like fervor, my heart a moon learning all its phases at once. My idiolect and diaphragm, deliberate disc slipped from tough spine, Elysium I pitch my body beneath, white morning glories opening from my sweat flushed back. I feel my veins heart pluck toward you. I rise like any body of water compelled into risk, pulled up the god ladder of your gibbous. You perfect your appetite in my blood, hematite of harvest, scolecite that pulls my blood waves to zenith in your skull of good omen. Your lambent weight witness to worship and worry. I, a sun celibate celebrant ensconced in pearl, my mood unravels in your fingerless hand. I dance lute-backed in the armory of your niveous eye, your snake-fang posture I hang from my ear, your crescent weaning me off your nectar. I will grieve your circumference, your diameter, your secant and chord, as you renew yourself with erasure. Moon as a mouth no more, moon as a wound no more, moon wound round my fists no more, moon in the grips of hunger no more, moon chip-toothed, goat eye round in shock no more, Moon no beast aspires to kiss. Moon the color of my coming no more. Misery moon, moon dipped in a whale. Moon sick no more. Moonward dust floats but lingers no more. Moon heavy chimney no more. Moon washed tongue washing me no more. Full moon night's chandelier no more. How high the no more moon. The cow jumps over the never moon. Moon river no more. Wider than a mile, my arms take the shape of you no more. Do not watch me while I look for you in the galaxy that breathes your many names. Tsukuyomi, Koyoshaki, Shangge, Kansu. I am amazed by moonglut, moonstruck, lunatic eclipsed by my lips, supplicant. Oh. Final poem for the field of poetry. In the grip of a nor'easter, you come bearing grief, having pieces not come in peace. You arrive bladed with certainty. You slam shut the car door and smolder before the locked cabin, rough trip up the Hudson as you distracted yourself with a list of flowers, awaiting deft penmanship to groom them tight and bloom them clean. News of your brother's death intercepted your drive to this residency. Fellowship among the crude Madonnas of empty mailboxes draped in robes of days-old ice. You have not written about the passing of family before, their antagonistic absences, intrusive, their teething tombstones in the brain. Pill after pill to sleep, to create, to erase. You swallow and scratch into a notepad what the frozen earth refuses. Bougainvillea, lilac, burning bush, another close kin added to the Bible's kept obituaries. You hated your brother's left eye, unruly wanderer settling away from you and observing a world you could not sense. Glossy ivy in all its tenure, the tender fingers of Buckeye. The white page frozen before you like rhyme. You dig and discover what you already knew. Decaying kin, meandering roots catching his beautiful ankles. You are looking for a way out through beauty, but beauty only goes where needed. On the pad you write, enough, what you've had, how much more of you there is, how much of you will be left when you're gone. I'll close with the poem, final poem for my father, misnamed in my mouth. Sunlight still holds you and gives your shapelessness to every room. By noon, the kitchen catches your hands, misshapen sun rays. The windows have your eyes, taken from me, your body. I reorder my life with absence. You are everywhere now where once I could not find you even in your own body. Death means everything has become possible. I've been told I have your ways. Your laughter haunts my mother from my throat. Everything is possible. Father light washes over the kitchen floor. I try to hold a bit of kindness for the dead and make of memory a sponge to wash your corpse. Your name is not addict or sir. This is not a dream. You died and were buried 3 times. Once after my birth, again against your hellos shedding into closing doors, your face a mask I placed over my face. The final time you beneath my feet. Was I buried with you then? I will not call what you had left anything other than gone and sweet perhaps. I am not your junior, but I fell in love with being your son. Now what? Possibility was a bird I once knew. It had 1 wing. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much for reading that poem. That's my favorite one in the collection. What an amazing group of readers tonight. Your work was all so unique and so profound and really, really moving. We're glad to have you here to ask you some of our questions that we tend to ask all of the poets who come and talk to us. I'll go first with the one that the students always have on their mind that they always want answered, which is, what advice do you have for someone of any age? They could be older students putting together their first collection of poetry.
I can begin. Something that I did, I have two different collections. The first one has sections and the second one did not. I didn't want the first one to have sections, but it had to. And I was lucky enough from uni to be able to just go straight through. One of the things that helped me to decide what poems belonged in the book was to see how the poems converse with one another. Do they want to be together? Do they share similar themes? Do they complicate the themes that they do share, as opposed to repeating some of the same information? Also, what is your, a strange word to use, but what is your loyalty to the poems? Sorry for the music outside, I'm in my living room. Do you still feel a kind of passion when you read them? Do they still energize you? And do they reflect the current mode of your imagination, right? Do they inspire you as you read them? So those are just, I mean, there are many ways to do this, but those are just two ways of considering how to begin thinking about the beginnings of a manuscript.
Anyone else want to talk about that one?
Sure. I love what you said, Philip. I think that that's absolutely incredible advice. And I love what you said about sections as well. That's so funny. I also think that, like, you know, it's okay to trust your intuition. Like the hardest thing for me when ordering a manuscript is like wanting a lot of control. The poems won't be controlled, I don't think. And so like things happen to me, like sometimes I'll use a pendulum to help me decide order, you know, which is about connecting to, you know, whatever micro frequency I have, as well as like I'll have dreams of certain poems like need to go in the manuscript, or, you know, I'll wake up being like, oh yeah, actually this poem needs to go before this other poem. I don't know why. In the dream it made sense, and then, you know, I'll put it together and, you know, look at it, and either it'll make complete sense or I'll be like, that's really bizarre, and it'll shake my thinking up, to kind of relinquish control to the poems themselves.
Does anyone else have more to add to that question? Cyrus, were you saying yes, or was I imagining?
Yes, I am. I contributed to an anthology called Marbles on the Floor, I think it's called. Virginia Concha put together. And my essay is about mystery and legacy and putting together a manuscript. So I tend to write in cycles. Like my new book was written in 8 weeks. It poured out of me faster than anything I've ever written. But I often write, and I don't know where my manuscript is going. So it requires a lot of patience and in a lot of cases research, since I write a lot about history. So I want to I want to second what Rajiv says about intuition and mystery and dreams. And you know, you can literally put all your poems on the floor and then, you know, literally move them around. There are all sorts of wonderful ways of approaching it, and trusting that you're going to get to a kind of revelation or awareness. You know, in the critical world, they don't talk about how our work is actually a form of self-revelation, because they can't do that work, but it's very, very important. It's a mirroring of who we are, I think, our authentic selves. So one thing I always say, a lot of times we're putting together things and we won't really know how they are together, what they mean, until I think maybe around the time of the publication. So I think the poetry making self is maybe, mine is 2 or 3 years ahead of my actual everyday self. So I tend to look to the poems sort of, what direction am I going in as a person? What do I need to focus on? Right. Like I started writing family poems before my dad died, the year before my dad died. And I look back and I think, of course, this is where I was heading in my life and where I needed to write there. So lots of patience required. Each book has a kind of destiny. You cannot force it out one way or the other. Like Gospel According to Indigo, Wild Indigo took me 15 years. Like I said, the new book took me 8 weeks. So you got to be open to that transmission. And you can't use your intellect. You can use your intellect to shape the poems, but it's like the wild horse. It's not, Deborah Winger and Urban Cowboy, but it's a wild thing. And we all learn to, I think, hopefully try and enjoy the process and just have respect for the enormity of it. I think that's what I said in my essay. It's been a year or two since I did that, but mystery, important.
I love that. And I love the idea of laying a manuscript out on the floor, which is what I did with my first manuscript. And Lucy Brock-Broido herself actually laid it out on the floor with me. And she talked about and how important it was to get the first and last poem of each section, the first and last poem of the book. Like, I mean, if you had nothing else, put your aces down there, and
Was Lucy your teacher?
Lucy was my teacher. Lucy
was my
helped me.
best friend when I was 25 years old at the Fine Arts Work Center.
That is wild.
And I got to pull
Wow.
out of her drawer her first manuscript and say, this is really good.
No doubt. All of her manuscript, including that one, is now like apparently at Butler Library. So if you want to see
That's
her
good to
letters
hear.
and her notes and all of that.
The original
Um,
title was All of England on the Floor.
And
That was the
I actually had not
original title.
heard that, but that does not surprise me. That seems,
I'm a witness to tell you that was the original title of, what is it? A Hunger?
A Hunger. A Hunger is the
And
first.
All of
That's right.
England on the Floor. I'm so thrilled that you were able to work with her.
She was so good to me and good to us and so generous. And my wife now, girlfriend at the time, could not understand when I would come back to our apartment in the East Village at the time at like 3:30 in the morning that I had been in workshop all that time. She thought, surely, you all have gone out for dinner or drinks or something. No, we've just been sitting in this woman's thrall talking about poems, at a class that began at like 6 o'clock, at night. Yes, she was very dear
She
to
was
me.
legendary for that.
That's it. But I can still see her sort of bent over those poems with her hair sort of falling down, sort of
All of
shell
that
shaped
hair,
on the
yeah.
floor. I will say though, with this new book, with this second book, that there was something really important to me about not considering the architecture of a book per se, of a manuscript, not even sections. I was trying to find words and phrases and lines and build poems and just let them come. And this idea of whether or not they'd sort of work well together, Philip, I think that became important. And then I realized on the self-revelation piece, Cyrus, that there was this work that my poems were doing, maybe ahead of work that I was able to do personally, but that was part of that broader work, which I found really important. And it wasn't until I sent the book off to Four-Way and they wanted to pick it up, and I needed to think of the book or the poems, let's say, as a book, that I began to think less of what this was doing for me as a collection of poems and more of what I wanted the reader's experience to be. And that actually caused me to create brackets in the book for poems that had yet to be written, that needed to be, that might represent some mercy, you know what I mean? Something to cut, let's say, the elegy with a few odes, or some humor or some lightness or some at least play sonically or linguistically that might get us up in the head out of, sort of being in the belly for a little bit. But that process was really important to me as I got away from thinking of this as my book and something I'd give away to others, and began thinking, well, what might they be coming to this for? And not finding that they need or that they might want or that I might like to give them. And that helped. That whole idea of brackets really helped. And this idea that, at least with my editor and my copy editor and press, they were really good with me, and that's many of our presses actually, playing and fussing until honestly the last minute. So I could fill those brackets in until finally the copy editor is a brilliant poet himself and a brilliant mind. Jonathan Blunk is his name. Finally said, no, truly. I'm not copy editing another version of this. Are we there? Okay, we're there.
I'm laughing because I'm in that editing process with Four-Way right now. I have a book coming out in February 2024, which is completely different from what I just read. So I'm kind of like, it's just so much fun to work with them at Four-Way.
There's Jonathan Blunk in the room, you all.
Yay!
Is that right? Or did I just imagine that in my sleepless
Hi,
nights?
Jonathan. Yes, you're right. He's here.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that. Hey, Jonathan.
Are your ears burning?
Thank you for those 4 really thoughtful responses to that question. Some of the most tried and true advice that all writers, poets included, get is to write, and just not stop. And a question I like to ask is, how do you nourish yourself as a writer, and how do you nourish your poetry when you're not writing?
When I had writer's block, I sang a lot. My brothers are singers and performers. I didn't say it for years, but when I was at the work center, I was friends with Lucy. I couldn't write anything after 4 months, so I sang a lot in my studio. It took me many years to confess that I hit a writer's block. But I think because I was a very young poet, my book was selected for the National Poetry Series when I was 23 years old. I hadn't decided that I was a poet or a writer, and I was kind of burnt out by the time the book came out when I was 25. And I realized I was kind of an overachieving dude, and my social self needed to catch up with the prodigy poet self. So there's actually 12 years between my first book and my second book because I needed to grow up as a person. I also really needed to understand that people didn't have to read my poetry to understand me or like me. With my first book, I thought, you won't understand Cyrus Cassells unless you read The Mud Actor. It's like, I don't want to hear from you. And then it's like, okay, forget it, So I think sometimes when you can't write, it's because things are a little bit imbalanced. Like right now, I don't feel like writing poetry. I finished another book about Garcia Lorca, and I feel like I need a break from poetry. So I'm writing prose. I'm working on fiction. So it's really, you have to kind of be a Sherlock about your own consciousness in terms of your writing ups and downs and all of that there. So I'm not of the right school because I was humbled early, and I really couldn't write poetry for 2 years. So I also turned to translating Catalan poetry. And even though it's taken almost 40 years to publish those, they're coming out in the spring finally. So you never know what's your process. The longest gestating thing of my career, I started in 1983, and it's only coming out in the spring of 2023.
Cyrus, someone in the audience wants to know which songs you sang in your studio.
Which songs did I sing? It wasn't Thriller, even though it was 1983. It wasn't Billie Jean, if I recall. I remember I really liked some of Phoebe Snow's song. I discovered Phoebe Snow and got a chance to see her live on stage, maybe just a few years before she died. But I had fallen in love with Joni Mitchell's songs, and it's a big influence in my life. Can't remember what else was happening in the spring of 1983, but I didn't want to sing because my brothers are professional singers and musicians. And as an actor, occasionally I had to sing, and people would tell me that I was a good singer, and I'd be startled again. So I really suppressed my singing, performing self because of my family. I thought, I don't want to compete with him around now. So I got over that eventually. But I was kind of hiding that. I didn't want anyone to know I could write. They'd given me 7 months and I only used 4, damn it. You know? So you feel a little bit of a imposter syndrome. You know? Anyway.
Does anyone else have thoughts on the question of nourishing your poetry when you're not writing? Jump in.
Yeah, I think that like I am a kind of person that I'm like stirring a lot of pots at once. So, you know, there's like nonfiction that I'm working on, poetry, of course, and then like I'm doing kinds of translation things that are really exciting to me. You know, what is it? People say like translating is like studying at the feet of a master. You know, whether the master is like a sewer rat or the master is like that was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle reference.
Okay.
Or if it was, or if the master is an actual like singer. You know, for me, poetry and song actually go hand in hand. A lot of the things that inspire me are these like devotional poems that were written, you know, in the 1400s, 1500s that I've been really going deep into. So a lot of song as well. I think though that I want to say like when I'm having a really hard time inhabiting the speaker's voice in a poem, I like try to get outside of my mind. So like what I'll do is I'll cook old recipes that I've only ever heard about in my family that I've never made. So it's a lot of like this like guesswork that happens. So for example, my mom's dad used to make this thing called reconche. And like all my life I've heard about reconche. There's we've never made it in our house. My father's family, they never made it. And so my mom described it to me. And so like, you know, heavy Googling and like finding like these like old village recipes from the 1800s has been like really, really difficult. But come to find out, this is how, you know, the process and then making it and then like eating it and then like being like, oh, wow, this was a research endeavoring and I produced something, right? I mean, it was something that I consumed like to literally nourish myself. I've also started taking classes in pottery as a way to kind of like get out of my mind and to get more into my body. And I find that like when I come to write, when I come back to writing, it's I have a kind of different bodily orientation, and I think that helps me. Or at least, I mean, I can't say prescriptively that it helps me for sure, but I'll say that, you know, it's like kind of like that micro vibration. I think that, you know, the experience of which, you know, impacts every aspect, and including the writing.
I like that idea of a micro vibration so much. And I'll say that I've had some spells recently where I've gone months and like pushing a year without a poem. And the first thing that I do, I guess as a prerequisite to nourishing the poet and the poetry is to try not to worry. I do think they're there. I do think they come back. I don't think that there's somewhere that won't be available to us or to me anymore. And sometimes I go several nights without dreaming. I still think that process will come back when certain conditions are present. And in the meantime, I walk, I meditate, I listen to jazz, and I watch films, which are sort of the closest I'll get to dreaming if I'm not sleeping well enough to dream myself. And then I just read a ton of poetry. And usually a conversation begins that way. Something will catch. It's just a word or it's a phrase or it's anything that we've heard tonight. You just think, you know, and it starts rattling around and you start playing with that in your notes. And pretty soon a poem responds to another poem. And that's where it goes from there.
I avoid everything poetry, poetic, poeses. I don't do it. I don't bother with it. I take a break. I get exhausted very quickly by doing the thing that I love. And what I mean by that is that I don't want the thing I love to become a habit. I want it to always remain a kind of mysterious method, something that is I mean, it's familiar to me, but I don't always know how I'm getting at the thing. I have the capacity to, and the frequency of performance to let craft weigh very heavily on me, and then it becomes unfun. So I take breaks from poetry frequently, and I won't read it, I won't touch it. If I'm teaching it, that'll be the only interaction that I have with it. But I will do, of course, novels, nonfiction, critical work, and a lot of critical theory informs the things that I'm interested in. And I don't, well, I used to consider myself a poet. I no longer use that title. I consider myself a writer, which I think all poets are. I don't understand the differentiation, but to each his own. But yeah, and it has allowed me to have a lot of confidence to say, okay, well, maybe I want to try writing a play. I don't know how to write plays, but I didn't know how to write a poem once, so I'll learn. I'll figure it out. So to not have fear or thinking that you're betraying poetry by not interacting with it. And one of the things I tell my students is to fall in love, to get their hearts broken, and to sit in some grass, like live a life, basically, and so that that life can then come into the poems.
That's what Michael Harper told me.
Good old Michael Harper.
Yeah, he said to me that he didn't want me to do my MFA directly from Brown. He wanted me to wait and live a life. I didn't listen to him, but it was good advice.
Just laughing.
We have another question in the chat
Okay.
about, it's similar to what we were just talking about, but about what writers influence and inspire you the most. What writers do you keep going back to, enjoy discussing the most with your students?
Well, I just read a whole book about Lorca and my connection to Lorca for the past 40 years. I was introduced to his poetry in high school. For my high school graduation present, I was giving a collected poems of Lorca. So I guess it was about 12 years ago, a friend said to me, Cyrus, you're almost like the reincarnation of Lorca. You're the person who has to write like a book about Lorca. So I just finished it about a month ago. And I wanted to include my 5 pilgrimages to Granada where he's from. So I've created a book with vignettes and poetry to sort of give that sense of, the sacred journey I went on with Lorca over the years. And I hope I've succeeded. I'm waiting to see what 4 ways is about it. And I've got the great Octavio Colina doing the art for me. His art reminded me so much of Lorca's art. So I'm very excited about it. And of course, there's that self-revelation stuff along the way about why I was introduced to Lorca. So I've done a course on Lorca and Rilke. They're like my two the poets who inspired me the most over the years. I'm trying to share my passion for those two. And my students have written some amazing papers as well there. So it's called Moons for the Magician Lorca. It's the name of the new book. And it won't be out for a while, but it's done. I thought it would take another, So it's a combination of poems I even wrote when I was a teenager and poems I wrote within the last years. So those are my guys right now. I haven't finished the Rilke book, but there is a Rilke book where I'm conversing with the Duino elegies. It sounds absurd, but it's really a real project. And I went to Duino Castle by accident. You take the airport bus from the Trieste airport, and there's a Duino Castle stop. I thought, oh my God, there it is. So I had to come back from the city. That actually happened to me. I wasn't planning to go. I didn't know the castle was nearby. So that's what I mean about the destiny of a book and projects. It can be pretty wild. All I knew is I suddenly got this impulse to go to Trieste. And it's like, oh, wait a second. That's where Rilke was. And there's this castle. It's not a big castle. But things like that make it exciting. Make the process and the journey exciting.
For me, that's the poet Bridget Begin Kelly. I teach her often as I can. I am obsessed with her. I
She's
I
in my new
understand.
book,
She,
a poem
okay,
for
well
her.
then
Yeah,
I can't,
we were actually friends too. Sorry, but we were friends.
No, I just love her so much.
Oh, I'm so glad. It does my heart so good.
And any mentioning of her, like, so that means I was gonna get the book anyway, but that means I'm really gonna get the book very quickly. I hope we can get new work from her, though I understand the reason why we cannot, or the
I
possibility
don't
of
know
it.
what
Yeah.
is the reason why.
I
We all
don't,
waited for years and it's still not there.
you know, she was private and she didn't like things coming out without her consent. And I don't know. I don't know if she okayed it before she passed away.
We met when we were teaching in Idlewild and we were the only poets without cars. So the chauffeur showed up for us. That's how we became friends. We would go to our workshops in the morning and that's how we got to know her. And then she was here in Austin for a while. So I actually got to cook for her and
Nice.
learn about and talk about her genius. You know, what happened is her
Mhm.
father would read all these brilliant writers to her when she was a kid, and then have no idea. Then as a grown-up person who became a genius, it was all there waiting for her.
Yeah.
Moby Dick and all that stuff.
Yeah.
She was just something else. And I love her poetry so much. I talked with Terrence about her work, and I guess I need to do a memoir about the poets I know, like Lucy and Bridget, that I miss so much. I'm actually really pissed that crazy people are alive and Bridget and Lucy are
Sorry, you
not.
sound like
Really,
me.
it actually makes me angry. Like, we need our poets. Someone said we're like the grace notes of the culture.
Mhm.
And I think that's true. And when the poets go away, there's something wrong. Notice they
Keep
exited
going.
around 2000, wasn't she 2016 or I don't know. They were like, so it does my heart so good that she's important for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Philip, what is the thing about her work that inspires you the most? If you
Oh, you have
could
no
boil it
idea
down.
where it's gonna go. You have no
Yeah.
idea where
Exactly.
it's gonna go. And the way that she moved through a poem
Oops,
You just went out.
oops.
is sonically rich. Her poems are sonically rich.
Like
So
yours.
sound-wise, you don't know where she's going. Narratively, you don't know where she's going. Lyrically, you don't know where she's going. But when you get to the end of it, it's like, oh, of course. Of course. She's so mysterious and
Yeah.
mythological. Like she takes the simplest ideas and notions and makes them grotesque or makes them larger than the domestic realm or the realm of raising a child or just looking at nature. It's always bigger than what I've ever conceived of the things that she's paying attention to. So it forces me, it challenges me to do the same with my own looking to make it make it as expansive as possible.
Wow. And she would always start her readings with reading something else. She'd read like an ancient Egyptian poem, and you're like, right.
I can say I'm not going to name Lucy because we've already talked about her a little bit. But I do go to Lucy quite frequently for nourishment. But I will say just recently, and I don't know what got me on this tip, besides the fact that I see his daughter every once in a while, but I found my way back to Mark Strand's night pieces.
Mm.
And they just landed in a completely different way actually than they did the first time I read through them. And I've experienced that a handful of times where after the pandemic, I feel like people writing in the 90s and 80s and 70s and 60s somehow like caught what this would feel like just as we come up and out of this, if that's indeed what we're doing. And those night pieces, just rereading them now has been just very, very cool. So I've been going back to Mark Strand Selected, and sometimes when I'm a little bit dry in terms of being available to write my own poetry, I'll do like an English to English translation. Like I'll just go through the lines of poets I love and just feel like, well, what if I queered this in my particular way? I put this into my voice. What words would I, find? And I, expansive is the word for what happens next.
There are several folks that I go back to always. I mean, I think that I'll name one person whose passes was Agha Shahid Ali. For me,
Oh,
is a
yes.
poet who is just always razor sharp. Every time I go back, it's
Mhm.
like I'm reading the poems for the first time. The kind of realizations and the way the real intricate lattice work that he's like sculpted into his poems is just incredibly breathtaking. In that it shows connections to this world and beyond. And for me, that's a lattice that I would love to climb. And then also like just what he's done by bringing the ghazal form into English has been unmatched, in my opinion. And I think that it's been really inspiring to think about how he uses precision and form, and the way that it's like open sky, limitless.
I keep going back to Linda Gregg's work. I carry it around with me, her selected anthology. I had a chance to meet her years ago with Li Young Lee. I just find her work stunning and come back to it a lot.
She's so underrated. I love her work too so much, and I feel like she does not get the attention she deserves.
Well, it's partly because of her, her partner and his greatness as well. They're both, I think they're kind of equally great. We're so lucky to have his collected poems and her. So, yeah, there's something so powerful about her relationship to land and spirituality. And she comes at it in always, I think, surprising ways. There's a kind of ferocity to the work, a sense of even like, sacrifice, One of her books is, what is it called? Something with the lion, Chosen by the Lion. I mean, what could be more dramatic than that? It's like, okay, something kind of oracular and strange and beautiful and super smart. My friend Tim Lowe studied with her. So yeah, check Linda's work out. It's really something. Really.
Well, thank you all so much for this incredible night of poetry and conversation. We're really fortunate to have had all of you here with us. And thank you for letting us record this reading, so all of the students who couldn't be here tonight will be able to see it in January. And you'll get your honoraria from
Oh, really? Forgot
Christina
about it.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
So thank you all for being
Thanks,
here. Thank
everyone.
you to our wonderful audience. And
They were wonderful.
stay in touch, and hopefully we see you all at the actual Hudson Valley Writers Center train station in Sleepy Hollow at some point for a
It's
reading.
beautiful. I've been there years ago. It's a gorgeous town.
Yeah.
Philip,
you
finally I
all.
get to see you.
Yes, I know. We have to see each other in real life.
Well, we were supposed to be at a panel in April and that didn't happen. I just love Mutiny. Huge
thank
fan of
you.
Mutiny and both your books. So this is a treat.
So
Rajiv, all I
maybe
can
we'll
say
see
is
some of you at AWP.
your beloved poet would be so proud of you and would have just loved you to pieces. Seriously. Julia, congratulations. And I'm thrilled that you got to work with Lucy. She was a very special person. But I got to know her in a very unusual way. I should write about her because I turned her on to Ricky Lee Jones' Pirates, her favorite album of all time. And we used to, she's the ninth person we'd sit and talk about men and Provincetown and everything. So I have really special memories of her. And
I can't wait to have that book in my hands.
Yeah,
Cyrus.
I'm so proud of the person that she became.
Yes.
To be kids with her and to grow up with her and to be her cheerleader. I can't believe I got to have that little job there. Her. That was me. I got to do it's like pull it out of the drawer, share it. You're really good. When we were young, it was all neo-formalism and stuff. Right. It wasn't what we were doing.
Right.
So we got to grow up and be ourselves, but there was resistance, and let me tell you.
Well, the process you went through, I think, emboldened Lucy to help other people find their own way that way too. And sort of whatever it was everybody else seemed to be doing, to trust that if you were doing something different, that you should just keep doing it. So yay, quite a cheerleader. And I do want all the secrets and the essays and the songs about all these powerful, women and men and non-binary poets that you've known all along the way, you know,
Well,
to
you
come
know,
out
you
soon.
remind me a little bit of, I was also friends with Olga Brumis and Jane Miller. So Lucy and Olga and Jane were like my graces, and they taught me so much about poetry because they were much further along. And I felt like Philip, I didn't really call myself a poet. I didn't consider myself a poet. I didn't consider myself a writer. And then I think it took me about a dozen years to grow into that. Like, oh yeah, okay, I'll take that mantle. But sometimes it feels restricting because I'm writing plays and fiction and stuff. So don't be hampered. I can see your wings sprouting. But man, I can see the Bridget Kelly legacy and the intensity of your sound and stuff. I went, well, I was the chair of the Elephants. I got to your book, I thought, at last, language. I mean, your work was so distinctive, it kind of leapt off the page. So you know that, but I'm just saying that I was thrilled by mutiny. Right. Good night, everyone. Please vote. We have to
Thank
bring our light.
you.
Take care.